Good morning, conference. Llanelli Borodar. Welcome to Bournemouth and the Constables' annual conference. This conference follows.
It was bizarre. At first it was like a wake almost, very sombre, very quiet, unusually quiet, almost like a lull before the storm. I think it was very despondent in some respects. Obviously we've had the march last week, which really raised a lot of spirits and a lot of expectation. We then had the police minister coming along today, spouting the same rhetoric that has been put forward for so many weeks previous to the march. He tried to claim that his comment that our march was futile was actually aimed at the union strike.
On the morning of the police officers' demonstration last week and so on, there were also the other industrial action. There was the industrial action by some unions. I was commenting on that.
When in fact it wasn't, it was aimed at us.
There were no definitive promises.
If backpedalling was in the Olympics, then Mr. Herbert should be in the team to go there. Really,
a constant thing that he kept saying was that the constables are the bedrock of the service. Well, we know that because that's what we do.
In reality, these reforms will deliver a bad society, where constables will no longer be warranted officers of the Crown, but rather they will be employees of private companies, servicing shareholders who are profit-driven rather than civic-minded.
Julie's speech was very to the point. She raised a lot of the concerns that we have. What was very disappointing was the fact that I don't think that Mr. Herbert was listening to it. He certainly didn't address any of the concerns that we have. And even when the questions were taken from the floor, I don't think he answered any of them.
The public are concerned about the loss of 16,000 police officers and 20% cuts to their service.
I don't think Mr. Herbert took on any of the concerns that we raised, and I think they were raised in a very, very productive way by the people that are representing us. But again, it was just waffle. It's just absolute waffle. Didn't answer any of the questions.
There's some interesting exchanges from the auditorium with the panel members. Certainly a few frayed tempers, I think, in the room, and understandably so in the current climate.
One of the reasons we appointed Tom Windsor was because he, as the rail regulator, had been notoriously independent and fearless, and of course had been very critical.
He obfuscated. He didn't answer the questions directly, and from that the tension rose. You could feel the anger starting to build.
Paul Della, Chairman Metropolitan. First of all, I challenged the Minister that Tom Windsor was independent when much of his report was exactly what David Cameron said in a speech 6 years ago.
he didn't answer my question.
The Police Service Pension Scheme was last reviewed as recently as 2006. It should be fair to every currently serving officer that they can remain on the pension scheme that they are on. And the sensible thing to do The sensible thing to do would be to have a new police pension scheme for new recruits so that people can look at that as part of the remuneration package and then decide whether they want to join the service or not. Giving the uncertainty...
Julie's been a clear and loud voice about the unfairness of this process. She's spoken out loudly, as she did today. The Minister didn't answer her questions. She made her points about the lack of fairness and the lack of transparency. He reverted to type. He gave a politician's answer that didn't answer the specific fears that we have, that we've been stitched up by this government.
We've got between now and the 24th of July, the day before the Olympics starts, to try and come up with a package or the recommendations that the Home Secretary's put forward. And I think there will be some really hard issues for us to deal with in there if they say no, they're not going to move on certain things. It's specifically around pensionable pay. He sat there and said there wasn't going to be a drop in officers' pay.
It doesn't actually overall take money out of the overall pay bill.
I don't know where the money goes then, because it most certainly does take money out of constables' pockets.
I can tell you now, they want to abolish CRTP, competency-related threshold payment. That is pensionable pay, and we can't have that.
The average pay of a bin man in the country is £41,000. A top constable can't attain that. just can't obtain it.
Morale is at an all-time low, described as a crisis situation by the men and women in that hall, but all ACPO and the Minister could say was there are concerns being expressed by officers.
I just feel completely worthless coming out of there. I don't feel any different to when I went in.
He hasn't improved his standing with the membership or the Police Federation in general. I really think that the government just aren't listening. It's really poor.